What's up, college football addicts? Today we're going to talk about the fireworks that just went off in North Carolina. And if this was a hurricane, it would be a Category 5 worthy one. Before we start, wanted to say welcome to College Football Addiction. If you're new here or this is your first time, we are very happy to have you. Now, recently, North Carolina Board of Trustees Chair John Prayer shared some controversial thoughts during an interview with Inside Carolina. Quickly, I want to shout out Inside Carolina, their 247 board, and Greg Barnes, who broke this story. So John Prayer came out and basically tossed out numerous different grenades, which we need to talk about. But the biggest and most surprising was in response to their own athletic director, UNC AD Bubba Cunningham. For those of you who may have missed it or are unfamiliar, Bubba Cunningham recently came out publicly supporting the ACC. In an interview with Inside Carolina, Cunningham said, "If Florida State thinks that they have greater value than our league and want to leave, wouldn't we ask to share in the upside of that greater value? So I'm not sure that $500 million is going to be enough. So maybe it's $600 or $700 million to get out of the league. I don't know. I think our obligation to the ACC is to be the best partner with our conference that we can possibly be. I also think that we have to look at what is in the best interest of the university today and going forward. But I think you can do both." Well, the North Carolina Board of Trustees Chair John Prayer responded and very publicly disagreed with AD Cunningham's take. He said it is a potential conflict, and it's something that is disturbing based on some of the comments he's made recently, talking about Cunningham, which seem to support the ACC at the expense of Carolina. That's a bad look. I think we all recognize that change is hard, but sometimes it is exactly what's needed. We all have to fight the comfort of complacency, and I think that now is the time to be very open to pursuing all options, including those beyond remaining in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Prayer went on to say many more interesting things in his interview, but before we get to those, let's take a moment and talk about that first one. First off, I know there are a lot of Bubba Cunningham fans out there in North Carolina, but with all due respect, what Cunningham said in the interview literally will be used against North Carolina in their future lawsuit against the ACC. It was a horrible mistake for him to weigh in and take the ACC and their side in all of this. And personally, if it was my call, I don't know that I would trust him to be in charge during this process. You can't have a school's athletic director running his mouth, essentially being this ignorant over a $50 to $60 million annual differential. Second, I give complete credit to John Prayer for standing up for the best interest of UNC. We've talked about what we want for UNC. We've talked about the way that I think UNC should be treated and how I'm worried about them being handicapped, and I'm worried about them not getting out because of the stuff with the Board of Governors in the state of Carolina. But now is not the time to be carrying the ACC's water. And I know a lot of you North Carolina fans care more about basketball than football. I get it. But let me be very clear. Being paid $50 to $60 million per year, less than the Big 10 and the SEC, will sink both your football and your basketball teams quickly. You're not going to be able to compete with teams who can pay their players magnitudes more. The SEC, the Big 10 are going to continue to take over everything. It's not just going to be football. They will move to basketball next. They already dominate football. And they will have an influx of money, and basketball creates revenue. The SEC probably unfairly got a lot of teams in this year, and you've already seen the ACC weaken as a conference. Duke and Carolina are essentially what Clemson and Florida State are to basketball. Now, they've always been the cream of the crop, but there's always been good ACC teams outside of that. Look what's happened to ACC basketball play. NC State's making a nice run this year. I get it. But there are not teams like there used to be. The ACC is down and has been. Look at Virginia. Look at Louisville. Look at teams that were semi-competitive in the past, like Florida State and others. They're not there. The play is not good. And don't think that that won't carry over to Duke and Carolina at some point. So Prayer went on and interviewed with WRAL. He said the addition of 2 schools from California and a school from Texas to the ACC has the additional burden of making it harder. It effectively creates a further burden on those schools that are not feeling well served by the conference, by the commissioner. By adding 3 schools, you make it harder to do things like, say, dissolve the conference. I'll repeat that pretty quickly for you there, Tar Heel fans. The chairman of your board of trustees just let the cat out of the bag. Just like I told you, the Magnificent Seven had been working recently and sprung up again to try to dissolve the conference. Well, the chairman just acknowledged that that was being considered. And your chairman just acknowledged that adding SMU, Cal, and Stanford makes that even harder. Prayer went on to say the conference is not acting as if it is representing the best interest of member schools, including the top-tier schools like Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina. And again, I'm just going to repeat this. Prayer is absolutely correct here. He understands the situation with the ACC represents an existential threat. He understands how grave things are now. This isn't the time to wait a few years and hope everything plays out well. You have a very narrow window here. If enough people get into the Big 10 or SEC who don't want you to join, they can literally block you from joining. So you better join while the presidents are all on the same page and ready to take you. And I give him full credit for standing it up and acting in the best interest of UNC. This man is trying to save your program's competitive future, while Bubba is playing politics and placing old friendships above what is in the best interest of North Carolina. It's pretty clear Bubba thinks that he can be loyal to both the ACC and North Carolina, and I'm not putting words in his mouth. That's exactly what he said. The thing is, math makes that impossible, and the sooner the fan bases realize this, the faster North Carolina can adapt in the new era of college football. Now, I don't know what ends up happening here. It seems like, looking at it from the outside, that there is a lot of internal turmoil right now at UNC. It seems like they're not on the same page. It seems like if you're calling somebody out publicly, if you're calling your athletic director out in interviews and questioning why he's talking to the media about certain things, why he's saying certain things, what are the conversations that are happening behind closed doors? I cannot wait to see what happens with this. We didn't see anything like this at Florida State. We didn't see anything like this at Clemson. And Clemson and Florida State also didn't sing the praises of the ACC shortly before filing a lawsuit against them. UNC's Board of Trustees has been very on board with what Florida State and Clemson have done and been doing. And the AD, Bubba Cunningham, has been very opposed. I think his friendships, I think the relationships that he has with the Good Old Boys Network there on Tobacco Road, there in North Carolina, is probably the driving factor of a lot of this. I don't know who he's friends with. I don't know what his relationships go back at and how long he's been buddies with the people that are tearing this conference down. But I do know it seems like his idea of the way things should move forward and the Board of Trustees' idea of the way things should move forward are pretty opposite. And I think the Board of Trustees is going to win here. I don't envision a scenario where Bubba gets his way. And maybe that means he's not the AD at UNC for much longer. I don't know. That's kind of for them to decide. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. This one is fascinating. Florida State, one joint movement to get out. Clemson, one joint movement to get out. North Carolina, some differing opinions there at UNC. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Does Bubba get in line? Do they get rid of Bubba? Does he continue to try and sabotage North Carolina athletics? You let me know what you think down below. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon here on College Football Addiction.